Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to continue our contract management series, and we're going to focus this time on SOWs. So the lesson plan objectives, we're going to walk through auto grading of SOWs using world-class, standards. And the point of that, de-risk the implementations. And the final benefit is we're going to provide the leaders with a bird's eye view of the portfolio. Just by way of background, this is a simple reapplication of the current release of GPT-4o. It's an Omni, recently released with 128K context window, so roughly 4 times the size and 5x more speed. That's number one. Number two, this exercise is based on a real complex 4-party negotiation. So we were landing essentially 4 planes at the same time. We're going to focus on the implementation component of that transaction, which accounted for about 70% of the risk and about 40% of the cost. The implementation issues had to be de-risked. Our total package is about 31 pages, about 13,000 words. So the lesson plan has got 3 pieces. First is the site itself, which requires a GPT-4 account. We've got some steps described, and we've got a live link that we'll see here in a minute. Actually, step 2 is we need to assemble the material. In this case, we've got PSA SOW. Here's the PSA here. Here's the SOW here. Here are the benchmark guidelines and the query instructions, about 500 words in a. So the steps are, as you're going to see, we're going to operationalize the query instructions. We're only going to go through 6 or 7. It'd be nice to correct the typos. Okay, so now let's go to the custom GPT site. So what you see here is custom site setup. When you hit the screen, this is what it's going to look like. Through the back door, through the instructor side, you can see these documents will be there. So the first thing I'd suggest doing is hitting this button here, which is confirm receipt of the attached, which you will have access to, but not overtly. You'll be able to manipulate it, but you won't be able to download them, and summarize and outline. So you want to do this for the GPT site, custom site you're working on, because you want to get level set with the documents that are there, what is happening. So now let's proceed to step 2. You can see the instructions here is we're to review the parent name sections and provide comments as appropriate. So in the PSA document, we've got definitions, scope, fees, acceptance testing, confidentiality provisions, termination sections, general. Now this is done very well. In the SOW, statements of work, description services, deliverables, schedule, term. The LLM has done a very reasonable workmanlike job of decomposing the documents. Let's proceed to step 3. So you can see we're going through and we're identifying the onerous provisions of the SOW based on our benchmark guidelines. So we've got a limitation liability provision that want to change. The warranty provision is very good. Acceptance testing, termination for convenience, dispute, force majeure, payment terms, chronic failure, which is a really important provision, risk management, quality, and integration. Proceed. Now it's going to go through and identify the missing provisions in both the PSA and the SOW. So we've got termination and refund rights, SLA credits for underperformance, KPIs, project reporting, some risk, and milestone payments. I'd like a little more detail on this. Okay. Very good. Proceed. So what we're doing here is we're going through the billing section, and it's looking at the definition of the scope, and it's making an assessment of whether the billed hours seem reasonable or not. Now, at the end of the day, technical folks have got a determination on this, but what we're getting here is a large language model view of, do the hours seem reasonable given the scope of the work that's been identified? And you can see pretty much we're unchanged here for the most part. In the real world, when we actually did this, the hours ended up being increased because they had underscoped the project and we went through with a fine-tooth comb. In fact, the hours went up and not down. So here what we're going to do is talk about descriptions, the project descriptions, project management updates, discovery. We're talking about uptime. Very good. Now we're going to talk about SLA improvement provisions. I would say the implementation, we really need to see the license agreement, which is where this would live. The LLM has gone through and described what kinds of KPIs and associated credits would be involved in the license component of the transaction. This is not really part of the implementation, but it is very instructive to see the KPIs and the credits. So here we're going to go through and we're going to propose some draft redline text. This is a first one for termination and refund. This happens occasionally. It doesn't happen often. But if the implementation is on a failure path, basically the customer should have, it's hard to get this, but the customer should have the ability to secure a full refund for the fees that have been paid for the implementation, provided it's on a failure path. In my experience, I'd say about 20% of the implementations went down a bad road for various reasons. Having a chronic failure provision and then having a refund provision, and yes, I've actually executed refund provisions. SLA credits for underperformance, this is good. KPI service descriptions, this is good. Project reporting, burn down is very good. We've got some risk discussion here. Milestone payments is very good. We've got some uptime, call routing. It's all reasonably well done. So now we're going to go through and grade the deal. Yeah. So I would agree with this in general, missing provisions. What I'm going to say here is I want to see, like to see this broken out a little bit by specific provision. Here we go. Got our warranty provision, confidentiality, acceptance testing, missing provisions. Very good. Some SLA KPIs is very good. And this is, we did substantially modify the underpinning contractual stuff, and we beefed up the technical implementation is what actually happened. Let's proceed to leadership summary. So we've got some recommendations here. We want to address the onerous ones. We want to fix the missing. We can now have, in my view, we can submit this to legal review. Now we've got an executive summary that's suitable for the leaders, and I think we're good to go. And that's it. We're done. So we've taken what was a complex SOW, and provided that the benchmarks are available, the benchmarking provisions, we're basically good to go. So let's move back to our deal. Let's do an after action review. My view is we generated a good range of options based on the benchmark guidelines. I'd grade the leadership review at a B+. I would have expected a little more definition, but I thought it was reasonably good. What didn't work? You saw that 30% of the responses were too general. Prompt instructions had to be applied sequentially as distinct operator queries. It could have done it all in one shot, but I've noticed that the step-by-step approach generates a higher quality. You saw that redirection was needed to secure more detail. Occasionally, reminders are needed to provide responses in a tabular format. I would say that even though there's a new context window here, I'd urge folks to keep the word count under 50,000. In this case, we're at roughly the 30,000 level. Yeah, we're at the 12,000 level. There were very few hallucinations. Above 30, I've noticed there are problems. Above 50, it doesn't work very well. The changes needed. The new GPT-4o, which folks are saying is going to show up maybe November, perhaps early next year, will absolutely solve the context window limitations that are here and will enable agent capability to render models that will do planning and goal seeking. And I've got a technical term here, optimize the objective function. But really, it will be structuring, planning, and thinking about the different ways that the problem could be solved. We have a chap here named Jan LeCun, who's a Turing Award winner, that says, yeah, the LLMs, are pretty good, but they don't understand the physical world. They need persistent memory, and they still need the ability to reason and plan. My view is we're making progress on all of that, particularly with GPT-4 that's got audio-video interaction, which is really impressive. So in terms of next steps, I think, what I suggest to folks is that we pick a deal. Complex SOW would be fine because we need to understand the starting baseline and identify the bogey that's needed to win. Like, what exactly are we trying to accomplish? We need to prove that the approach works. And finally, the question is, so why Connect Analytics and why now? And what I'd say that is, most practitioners have done a reasonable job identifying daily management benefits. But I'd also say that that's 20% of the win. In my view, improving skill sets And specifically what I mean by that is robust query instructions and building the benchmark guidelines is 80% of the win. This visual here is from World Commerce and Contracting. These are verbatim comments from Sally Geyer, who's the CEO of the organization. It's a European professional association. And what you're seeing here is she wants more training to be made available to her members for AI kinds of activities. So this is a real need. At the end of the day, what are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to accomplish this, right? We want to give the leaders a bird's eye view of what's in our deal environment. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.